Anti-Afro-Bengalis, I think it's about time that this issue be addressed openly. This is the issue of protection. This came up because I understand somebody got very upset in response to a video that I posted. I had used the word hypocrite and the person took offense to the word, and there were some statements made. I'm not going to be able to address all of what was said in this one video. I'm going to isolate the issues. One of the issues that came up was the issue of protection. I guess there was a perception that the person was stating that I was coming for this person because I felt, and this is in this person's view, that he wasn't protecting women in or on Black YouTube or people who addressed Umar Johnson issues. I do not recall using the word protection. However, I don't think I necessarily need to use the word protection for that interpretation to be drawn. So I don't want to be too hard on that. But whether or not the word was used, we're going to go with that word because I do think that is an issue. That is a very big issue that we've been talking about, protection, because this does involve behaviors that are dangerous. And also, I put Kevin Samuels' names up here because this topic did come up in one of his videos, and he actually made the same statement that this person made, that it's not our responsibility as Black men to protect you, Black women. That was the statement. So the statements were essentially the same, what I was hearing from this person. So I'm going, are we sure we have the correct concept down? Are we sure what statements were being made were interpreted correctly? And what exactly do we mean by protection? Let me tell you what I do not mean, or what I am not even implying, directly or indirectly. What I would never, ever do is expect a person to physically come to my defense. Like somebody did something to me. Like right now, I'm here at home. Somebody did something to me. I'm going to put down my phone. I'm going to go to someone's house and say, so-and-so did something to me. Go get that person. No, I'm never going to do that. I'm never going to put somebody at risk for their life. I don't consider that protection. I consider that stupidity. People, we were raised with similarities and differences. And with me and my 7 siblings, our dad drove it home very clearly, got the point across. Me and your mother better not ever get any phone calls about you fighting at school. If anything happens, you come to us. Okay, let's put things back into a lens so everybody can understand what's happening. The person was offended for a couple of reasons. Number one, the person says I called him a hypocrite. Number two, the person says I indicated he called the police when in fact he says he called an attorney. I'm going to stand by that statement, hypocrite, and I'm going to explain that in a second, the reasons why. Let's talk about the lawyer. A lawyer is an officer of the court, aka an officer of the law. What a lawyer does when he or she is called, it's going to depend on what is stated. Ultimately, a client is going to drive what the lawyer does, but there are exceptions. There are situations when a lawyer is required to notify law enforcement. It's going to depend on what's stated. So yes, reaching out to someone who is an officer of the law is pretty much calling the police. Let me give you an example. You know John Wayne Gacy, look at his photo here. For those of you who don't know who he is, serial killer, convicted of torturing sexually assaulting 33 young males and boys in Illinois. He went to his lawyer's office, left his lawyer's office. His lawyers called the police. This is when they were digging up the bodies. They found these bodies under his home. After he was under this investigation, they found some bodies in rivers near his home. Well, I don't know if the rivers were near his home, but the river in the city where he lived. After John Wayne Gacy left his attorney's office, they called the police and told the police, you need to keep constant watch on our client. Now, the lawyers can't tell the police exactly what John Wayne Gacy told them, because that would be a violation. But if they have information that the public or anyone specific could be at risk for any future criminal behavior, they're obligated by law to call the police. If a lawyer ever comes into contact with any evidence, and just so you know, people, there was discussions about firearms. Someone felt threatened by a gun. This person felt threatened by a gun. If it ever occurred that a lawyer came in contact with physical evidence, that lawyer is required to call the police. So let's get that straight. An officer of the law was contacted. So let's get back to why I called this person a hypocrite, and I stand on that statement. This person shit on mine and Rev G's right to feel safe and protected when we contacted the police when we were threatened with violence. This person specifically stated, I wouldn't have called the police. And this is in reference to the person he's defending that goes onto his platform, and others. There's a few others that go there who have threatened violence. But this one in particular, his threats have been among the most graphic. And this person who's upset about being called a hypocrite stated, that's part of being on YouTube. In response to being threatened with rape, sexual torture, having your daughter subjected to, quote, sex by this freak, who, by the way, is underage. And this person also stated to another person, not the person who hosts the channel, the person who the channel host is defending. So let's get that straight. The person who makes the threats stated to another person he got into some argument with that he was going to F his daughter. And that young lady is underage. There have been multiple times when this particular person has made threats of violence. So the person who's saying that me and Rev G didn't have any justification to call the police is up here protecting someone who has a history of threatening violence. So he is, in fact, assuming a protective stance towards somebody, but not those who are experiencing threats of violence. So for him to say, I don't know you guys, I don't have any obligation to protect you. Protection consists of behavior before, during, and after. And let me make this clear. If this person is going to say, you're not part of my family, I don't know you, I don't owe you any protection, and we're not talking about physical, then this person has no business talking about George Floyd or being concerned whether or not any other black people will be killed by the police. Because is it true or not that people who are up in arms about our people being killed by the police want it to stop? We want a solution for this issue. And we have to realize we're never going to stop it. So wouldn't the goal be to reduce this significantly? We know we don't have the power to eradicate this, because crime and police encounters are going to happen. And they happen across all races. So we are not going to eradicate it. But we don't want to sit here and say, okay, it's just the way it is, and we're going to just sit here and not do anything. No, people want it to stop. So that's assuming a protective stance. If somebody wants to make that statement, they should not ever talk about any police brutality anymore. I don't know this person. Symbolism, speaking up, taking a stand. Now, if a person doesn't want to do it, they don't want to do it. But this crap about someone's not in my family, he just contradicted himself because he's protecting the person who's making threats of violence. Threats of violence that were reported to the FBI. There goes another reason why the term hypocrite applies. And I cannot tell you how basically nonsensical it is for this person to consider me a bully and I'm violating YouTube policy. Where the hell is YouTube policy being violated? I think to perpetrate violence is violating YouTube policy. Not saying to people, I would avoid any platform or any live stream where people are there and they have threatened violence. And they verbally abuse people. That is free speech for your information. Just it is your right to say, to hell with you, I will have anybody on my platform I want. You sure can. And I have every right to speak on it. And by the way, people send me clips. People have a right to get on their computer and on their phone and send me things. Send anybody things. Send you things. Is that against YouTube policy? Did anyone ever stop to think people send this to me because they're protecting me, because they care about me, because they don't like what's happening? I am not the only one this person has threatened. People do not like it. People want it to stop. People want to know when their lives are being threatened. This is a person who goes around trying to intimidate people by posting plane tickets on his community page that he's going to be in their city, trying to intimidate people. Oh, yes. So when people see this, they send it. And it gets sent right to law enforcement. So a person who continues to engage in this behavior, their behavior is reported. And where they go on YouTube, law enforcement is notified. So if you want to take a stance and protect that person, you can. But there's one thing no one is ever going to do, is shut me up and stifle my expression, my strong, abhorrent rejection of threats, of violence being perpetrated against people, in particular vulnerable people. I include myself in that equation. I am not going to tolerate any threats of violence. I'm going to come to YouTube. I'm going to create content. YouTube gives me that privilege, because it is a privilege. This is YouTube space. This is not anybody's individual right to say what I can say unless YouTube, who owns this domain, says I am not allowed to say it. And the person who this guy is defending is the one who's been sanctioned by YouTube and had his privileges removed. And the final thing I want to say is the person who was complaining about me addressing this issue was saying, you better not send your, I don't remember the word that he used, not goons. I don't remember, not people. I'll say supporters. I don't remember the word that he used. After him. I send people after other people. No, anti-fraud warriors are the ones that are law-abiding in this situation. The person on your live stream is the one who goes for people, who commits criminal offenses. So you got it backwards. And I've never even sent a complaint against your channel, the person that you're up here defending, he and those he associates with are the ones who constantly post derogatory statements about you on their channels. Do you see how crooked it gets, people? The people that this dude he's defending, that he associates with the closest, are the ones that attack him, and he's up here calling me the enemy by saying I'm a bully because I stand up against violence. That's never going to work. Nobody is going to pull me off the banner that I have waved for a lifetime, which is anti-violence. If anybody doesn't like that, you're right. They can simply tune out, act like I don't exist, but I am definitely not going to stop what I'm doing, and no ridiculous, childish temper tantrum labeling me as a bully is going to dissuade me from doing what I'm doing. Absolutely, there is more to come. In the meantime, you know the drill. Buyer beware.